You can read anyone if you learn to silence your mind. This is not a metaphor. It is not some mystical exaggeration. It is a fact. The moment your mind becomes silent, transparent, empty, the other person is revealed to you as they truly are. Their gestures, their tone, even their silence, all of it becomes a book open before you. You can read their fear, their love, their lies, their longings, not because you are analyzing, but because there is no one inside you to distort the seeing. When your mind is noisy, you don't see people. You only see your thoughts about them. You project, you interpret, you filter, you judge. You think you're looking at them, but you're only looking at the mirror of your own conditioning. A silent mind does not project, it receives. It simply witnesses. And in that witnessing, the truth of the other becomes transparent. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt that for a moment you disappeared, and suddenly you could see them, really see them? Not their face, not their appearance, not their words, but their being. That moment was not given by them. It was given by the silence in you. It was not their openness that allowed you to read them. It was your emptiness. People are like mirrors covered with dust. You cannot see them because your own mirror is also covered. When you clean your mirror, suddenly the reflection becomes clear. This is what I mean when I say you can read anyone, but only when your mind is silent. You have been taught the opposite. You have been told that to understand someone, you must study them, analyze their behavior, learn their psychology. That is nonsense. Psychology deals with the surface. Understanding comes from presence. The mind analyzes. Awareness sees. When you are silent, you are not separate from existence. You are not separate from the person in front of you. The division disappears. In that unity, understanding arises naturally. It does not need effort. It is like the sun illuminating whatever it touches. It cannot help but reveal. But the modern mind is trained to be noisy. From the moment you wake up, your mind is filled with chatter, thoughts rushing, opinions colliding, fears whispering. You are constantly interpreting, categorizing, labeling. You meet a stranger and instantly your mind says, he looks arrogant, or she seems kind, or he reminds me of someone I hate. And from that moment on, you no longer see the person. You see your conclusion. This is why people live surrounded by others and yet remain utterly alone. You are not meeting people. You are meeting your projections. You are trapped inside your own psychological movie, and everyone around you is trapped in theirs. Silence breaks that illusion. It cuts through the film of thoughts and reveals life as it is, raw, naked, unfiltered. A silent mind is not dull. It is intensely alive. Its stillness is not dead. It is vibrating with awareness. In that stillness, perception sharpens. You begin to feel energies you never noticed before. You sense emotions before they are expressed. You see intentions hidden beneath words. You become sensitive, not in the emotional sense, but existentially sensitive. And the miracle is, the more silent you become, the less judgmental you are, because judgment is a noise of the mind. When you are silent, you do not divide people into good and bad, right and wrong. You simply see, and that seeing itself is transformative, both for you and for the one you are seeing. You can read anyone, but the word read here does not mean to analyze like a scientist or to spy like a detective. It means to be so present, so empty of self, that the other's being unfolds before you naturally. It is like being a lake. When the surface is still, it reflects the sky perfectly. When it is disturbed, it distorts everything. Your mind is that lake. Most people never experience true seeing because their inner lake is constantly in storm. Every wave of thought distorts reality, so they live in misunderstanding, in miscommunication, in conflict. They think they are relating, but they are only reacting. They think they are loving, but their love is filtered through desires and fears. Silence is not something to achieve. It is your natural state. Thoughts are the disturbance. When the disturbance settles, the natural silence appears, and in that silence, perception flowers. You begin to understand life without effort. You begin to read the heart of others without books, without techniques, without psychology. The irony is that the more you try to understand people, the less you do. Understanding happens only when the trying stops, because trying belongs to the ego, and the ego can never understand. Only awareness can. When I say you can read anyone, I am not giving you a technique. I am inviting you into a transformation. Silence is not a skill to be learned. It is a remembrance of what you already are beneath the noise. Once you return to that stillness, the world around you changes, and not because the world changed, but because your eyes are finally clear. The mind is like dust on a window. You keep cleaning the world outside, but the dust is on the glass itself. Clean the glass, one becomes silent, and suddenly everything is visible. Now the question arises, how does one silence the mind? Because the very effort to silence it creates more noise. You try to stop thinking, and that very trying is another thought. You fight with your mind, and you are trapped inside it even more deeply. The secret is not suppression, it is observation. Watch the mind. Watch its games, its constant chatter, its restlessness. Watch without judgment, without the desire to stop it. Simply be a witness. Slowly, without your doing, the mind begins to settle. Just as a pond becomes still when no stone is thrown into it, the mind becomes silent when no interference happens. And then, in that silence, you will read people, you will read existence, effortlessly. The moment you stop interfering with life, life reveals itself to you. The moment you stop interpreting people, they show you their essence. Silence does not give you some supernatural power. It simply removes the barrier that was always between you and reality. Look at how you live, constantly decoding, comparing, labeling. Someone smiles at you, and immediately the mind whispers, "They like me." Someone looks away and you think, "They are ignoring me." But have you ever realized that this entire conversation is happening inside your head? You have not read them. You have only read your own imagination. The mind is incapable of seeing the other. It can only see itself reflected. It's like a man wearing tinted glasses and complaining that the world is colored. Remove the glasses, and suddenly the truth is neutral, neither good nor bad, just is. Silence is the removal of those glasses. When you are silent, you stop living through the past, because every interpretation is built upon memory, on what you have learned, what you have suffered, what you have been told. You meet someone, and instantly the mind measures. He reminds me of my father, or she has the same tone as that teacher who hurt me. The past becomes your filter, so you never meet the present. You only meet ghosts. A silent mind does not carry the past. It looks freshly, as if for the first time. In that freshness, true perception arises. You begin to notice the smallest details, not because you analyze, but because awareness sharpens when it is not cluttered. The tilt of a head, the pause before a word, the trembling in a breath, they speak volumes. But you can only hear them when you are not busy constructing stories. People often ask me, "Osho, how can I know if someone is lying to me?" And I say, if you are silent, you will know. Not because you will catch the lie, but because in silence falseness cannot hide. The vibration of untruth feels heavy, it distorts the energy. But the mind is too noisy to perceive such subtleties. The mind only believes or disbelieves, it never sees. Have you noticed how children can sense moods without understanding words? They feel when someone is angry, sad, loving. Why? Because they have not yet developed the thick armor of mind. They live closer to silence. As we grow, we replace sensitivity with intellect. We start listening to words instead of energy. We forget how to feel. Silence restores that forgotten language, the language of presence. You begin to communicate beyond words. Sometimes you look at someone and they instantly understand. No word has been spoken, but something real has been exchanged. That is communion. It is not communication through the mind, but connection through being. In silence, empathy becomes effortless. You begin to sense the inner world of others, not by effort, but because the boundary between you and them softens. The ego is that boundary, and when the ego fades, compassion arises naturally. You can read people not to judge them, not to manipulate, but to understand, to see their suffering, their longing, their unconsciousness. And that understanding itself becomes love. But be warned, silence will also make you see things you once ignored. You will see the games people play, the masks they wear, the unconsciousness in which they live. You will see manipulation disguised as care, fear disguised as love, greed disguised as ambition. It can be disturbing at first, because you were comfortable living blind. Silence removes the comfort of ignorance. The world is afraid of silence because silence reveals truth, and truth is rarely convenient. The noisy mind is an escape. It keeps you busy, distracted, occupied with trivia, so that you never face the nakedness of existence. You keep thinking, because thinking is safer than seeing. Seeing demands courage. If you truly want to read people, be ready to see without preference. You cannot choose only the pleasant truths. The silent mind sees everything, beauty and ugliness, love and deception, with the same clarity. It does not turn away. It does not react. It simply witnesses. And in that witnessing, a deep compassion flowers, because you realize everyone is lost in their own noise. Everyone is suffering from the same disease, the disease of mind. When you look at someone through silence, you don't see an enemy. You don't see a friend. You see a human being struggling, desiring, fearing, dreaming, just like you. And in that recognition, something melts. The wall of separation collapses. That melting is love. Not love as emotion, but as understanding. You cannot fake that. You cannot imitate silence. People try, they sit quietly, they close their eyes, they pretend calmness, but deep inside, the volcano of thought continues. Real silence is not absence of sound. It is absence of self. When there is no me, there is only seeing. And in that pure seeing, reading another becomes as effortless as breathing. But this frightens the ego, because if you can see others so clearly, others can also see you. Silence makes you transparent. You can no longer hide behind your personality, your achievements, your roles. The mask falls. That is why few dare to walk this path. It demands total vulnerability. Yet only in that vulnerability do you discover strength. Because what can be hurt when there is no mask left? When you are utterly exposed to life, you become invulnerable. Silence strips you bare. But in that nakedness, you meet truth face to face. The silent man does not live above others. He lives among them, but untouched. He sees their chaos, but his center remains calm. He listens to their words, but hears the space between them. He moves in the world, but the world no longer moves him. You can reach this state. It is not distant. It is not for saints or mystics only. It is for anyone who dares to stop, who dares to listen to the immense quiet that has always been there, underneath the noise. And once you touch that silence, life becomes transparent. People, events, emotions, everything becomes readable because you are finally present. The moment you begin to live in silence, you start to see that the entire world is built upon noise. Every institution, every relationship, every identity, all of it depends on constant chatter. Society does not want you silent, because a silent man cannot be manipulated. He cannot be deceived. He cannot be controlled, because he sees. A silent man does not belong to any ideology, because he sees the stupidity of all ideologies. He sees that every truth people fight for is nothing but a mental construct. You can read anyone when your mind is silent, because you are no longer hypnotized by the collective mind. You are free from its spell. Watch the crowd. In the market, in the church, in politics, everyone is trying to convince, to convert, to prove. No one is listening. Words collide with words. Noise meets noise. That is what human communication has become, a war of egos. And you wonder why there is so much misunderstanding? It is because no one is silent enough to hear. Silence is rebellion. It is the greatest revolution because it ends the inner dictatorship of thought. Once your inner dictator is gone, no outer authority can enslave you. You become unpredictable, independent, unconditioned. You live by awareness, not by programming. That is the freedom only silence can give. But this freedom comes with responsibility. When you can read people, you also see their suffering. You see their unconscious wounds, the patterns repeating endlessly, the fear hidden behind their smiles. You cannot unsee it, and that is why compassion naturally grows in silence. You no longer blame. How can you blame the blind for stumbling? You begin to understand that people are not evil. They are asleep. They hurt because they are in pain. They lie because they are afraid. They dominate because they feel powerless. To a silent mind, all of this becomes clear. The games of humanity are exposed, not to condemn, but to understand. And yet, you must be careful. Do not use silence as a weapon. Do not turn it into superiority. The ego is cunning. It can even take pride in being silent. Then you have missed again. True silence has no pride, because there is no one left to be proud. It is simple, humble, natural. It does not announce itself. It just is. When you are truly silent, people will feel something around you, a stillness that unsettles them and attracts them at the same time. Your very presence becomes a mirror. They will start to feel their own restlessness reflected in you. Some will be drawn to it, others will be afraid. That is natural. Silence provokes because it exposes. Have you noticed that when you are deeply silent, people become uncomfortable? They start talking more, fidgeting, laughing nervously. Why? Because your silence reminds them of their own emptiness. They have spent their lives running from it. Your presence becomes a doorway to what they have been avoiding. You can read them not only through words, but through how they resist silence. Their discomfort reveals their depth. Some cannot stand even a few seconds without noise, because noise is their identity. They have forgotten that behind all that chatter, they exist. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the essence of life. Sound comes and goes, but silence remains. In the same way, people's personalities come and go, but their being remains. To read someone is to see beyond the noise of their personality into the silence of their being. And to do that, you must first know your own. You cannot read the ocean if you are standing on the shore of your thoughts. You must dive deep. Only then can you feel its currents. Likewise, you cannot read another person while living on the surface of your mind. You must enter the depth of your own stillness. When you are silent, the whole world becomes like music. Every gesture, every sound, every pause has meaning. The universe begins to speak in a language without words, but the ordinary man misses it because he is busy listening to himself. This is the great irony. You think too much because you are afraid of emptiness. You are afraid that if you stop thinking, you will disappear. And you are right. You will disappear, but what will remain is far greater. The disappearance of the mind is not death, it is resurrection. When you stop clinging to your thoughts, you enter a vastness that words cannot describe. From that vastness, everything becomes readable. Not only people, trees, animals, rivers, stars. Existence begins to communicate. You begin to feel the pulse of life beating everywhere. This is why the mystics have always been misunderstood. They speak from silence, and the world listens through noise. Their words are heard, but their essence is missed. When I speak to you now, I am not speaking to your intellect. I am speaking to your silence. Because only silence can hear silence. So when I say, you can read anyone, I am not teaching you a technique of observation. I am showing you a path of transformation. Silence is not a method. It is your true nature. You have simply forgotten it under the pile of words, beliefs, and identities. Meditation is nothing but the art of remembering that silence. Not creating it, remembering it. Because it is already there, underneath the dust of thoughts. Every time you become aware of a thought and let it pass, you are one step closer to that silence. Every moment of awareness is a cleaning of the mirror. And once the mirror is clean, you will be surprised. Not only can you read others, but you can finally read yourself. And that is the real purpose. Reading others without knowing yourself is just curiosity. But knowing yourself, that is liberation. Because the more you understand your own mechanisms, the more clearly you see them in others. The mind is the same in everyone. Only the details differ. When you know your own jealousy, you will see jealousy in others with compassion, not judgment. When you understand your own fear, you will recognize it behind the masks people wear. Through silence, you begin to read humanity. And through humanity, you begin to read existence. It all starts with a single step. Stop running from your own mind. Sit with it. Watch it. Do nothing. Let the chaos settle by itself. Soon, you will notice something magical. Between two thoughts, there is a gap. That gap is silence. In that gap, you are free. Stretch that gap wider, and you will see life as it is. In that seeing, you will read not only people, but the very soul of existence. Once you begin to live from silence, something extraordinary happens. The line between you and others starts to dissolve. You realize that the people you read are not separate from you. They are mirrors reflecting back the fragments of your own consciousness. Every person who crosses your path is a page of your own book, written in a different form. When you meet anger in someone, it is your own anger being reflected. When you encounter love, it is your own capacity for love staring back at you. Life keeps bringing you mirrors until you recognize yourself in all of them. That recognition is the highest form of reading, not reading others, but reading existence through yourself. Silence is the doorway to this recognition, because only a silent mind can see without distortion. In noise you project. In silence you perceive. You realize that every encounter, pleasant or painful, is an opportunity to awaken. Every emotion triggered in you by another is a message from existence saying, "Look here, this is still unresolved within you." When your mind is silent, you do not react, you respond. Reaction comes from the past, from conditioning. Response arises from presence, and this is where the real reading begins. Not with the eyes, not with the intellect, but with awareness itself. When you respond from silence, your words carry power. They cut through illusions, but they do not wound. They are like swords made of light, precise, compassionate, real. People feel the difference even if they cannot explain it. They feel seen, not analyzed. They feel understood without judgment. That is the gift of silence. But understand this, silence is not passivity. It is the highest form of intelligence. A silent person is not indifferent. He is intensely alive. He feels more, not less. But his feeling is not entangled with thought. It is pure perception. That is why he can read the subtle vibrations of others without getting lost in them. He sees anger, but it does not infect him. He feels sadness, but it does not drown him. He remains the watcher. And this watcher is not cold. It is full of love, but a love that has no need to possess. It loves because it understands. It understands because it is silent. Silence and love are two sides of the same coin. The deeper you go into silence, the more you overflow with love. Have you noticed that when you are truly silent, you cannot hate? Hatred needs noise. It needs justification, stories, reasons. Silence destroys all that. In silence, hatred cannot breathe. That is why the mind resists silence, because silence kills the ego, and the ego feeds on conflict. A silent man is dangerous to the world of noise because he cannot be exploited. He will not follow blindly. He will not be seduced by slogans, religions, or ideologies. He listens only to truth, and truth has no organization, no priest, no scripture. Truth speaks in the language of silence, and those who have ears can hear it everywhere. You can read anyone, but once you truly can, you will no longer want to judge them. You will see too clearly the suffering behind their masks. You will see that everyone is fighting an invisible war within themselves. You will see how they carry the wounds of their childhood, the burdens of their parents, the fears inherited from generations. You will see how they perform strength while trembling inside, and you will feel compassion, not pity, but understanding, because you will recognize that the same mechanisms once operated within you. The difference now is awareness. You are no longer possessed by the mind. You see it for what it is. This is what I mean when I say, to know others, know yourself. There is no other path. The outer world and the inner world are two mirrors reflecting the same reality. Once you understand your own mind, every other mind becomes transparent. But the ego does not want transparency. It wants secrets, mysteries, control. It wants to read people, to manipulate, to dominate. And that is where most fail. They want the power of perception without the surrender of silence. They want to see through others, but refuse to see through themselves. You cannot cheat existence. You will see only as deeply as you are willing to see yourself. If your silence is shallow, your reading will be shallow. If your silence is profound, your perception will pierce through illusions like light through darkness. And remember, silence is not something you practice for a few minutes each day. It is a state of being. It is possible to walk through the marketplace, to work, to love, to laugh, and remain silent inside. The silence I speak of is not the absence of activity. It is the absence of identification. You can speak from silence, act from silence, even fight from silence. Because silence is your center, not your boundary. Once you find that center, nothing can shake you. Insults, praise, success, failure, they touch the surface but not the depth. People come and go, emotions rise and fall, but your inner sky remains untouched. And from that sky you can read the movements of clouds, the moods of others, the shifting patterns of life, without ever being lost in them. This is true mastery, to be in the world, but not of it, to engage fully, but remain inwardly free, to see through everyone and everything, but without arrogance, but with love, because you no longer see separation. A silent man is not interested in being right. He is interested in being real. He does not need to convince anyone. His very being communicates what words cannot. His presence teaches more than his speech ever could, and that is why silence is contagious. When you sit with someone truly silent, your own mind begins to quiet. The noise finds no resonance, and slowly it fades. You begin to feel a strange peace, not given to you but awakened within you. The silent one merely mirrors your own forgotten stillness. In that moment, reading another becomes unnecessary, because you are no longer separate. You have entered the same field of being. Understanding flows naturally, effortlessly. No words are needed. The illusion of me and you disappears. There is only awareness, watching, listening, loving. When you have touched silence, you have touched the essence of life. Suddenly everything becomes luminous. The same world, the same people, but your perception has changed completely. You walk through the crowd and feel the heartbeat of existence in every face, in every gesture. You can read them not as separate beings, but as expressions of the same consciousness. The beggar and the king are made of the same silence, and once you see that, judgment vanishes. How can you judge another when you see yourself in them? How can you hate when hatred would only wound your own being? In silence, duality collapses. What was the other dissolves into one seamless reality. That is why the mystics have always said, the greatest wisdom is not knowledge, it is understanding. Knowledge belongs to the mind. It divides, compares, analyzes. Understanding belongs to silence. It unites, it heals, it transcends. When your mind becomes silent, you stop living through conclusions. You no longer carry the burden of who people are. Each encounter becomes fresh, alive, mysterious. You don't reduce people to categories. You don't imprison them in your opinions. You allow them to be, and in that allowing, you finally meet them. The whole art of reading others lies in this allowing. When you are silent, you are not trying to decode. You are simply open. The openness itself becomes your vision. You are not searching for meaning. You are meaning. You are not looking for truth. You are truth. This is why true silence feels like coming home. For the first time, you are not striving to become someone. You are not chasing approval, love, validation. You simply are. And in that being, all questions dissolve. You can read anyone, yes, but what you will read will surprise you. Because once you see others through silence, you will see beauty where you once saw ugliness, innocence where you once saw guilt, light where you once saw shadow. You will see that every human being is struggling toward the same freedom, fumbling in the dark, seeking the same peace that you have now touched. This realization brings a tenderness, a deep compassion. You no longer need to preach, to convert, to correct. Your very being becomes a silent blessing. Whoever comes near you will be transformed, not by your words but by your presence. But the mind will still try to return. It will whisper, be careful, protect yourself, do not trust, analyze. It will try to reclaim its throne. Do not fight it, just watch. Let the mind do its dance but remain the watcher. The moment you watch, you are no longer the noise. You are the sky in which the noise appears and disappears. Remember this. Silence is not an achievement. It is a remembrance. It has always been there, underneath every thought, every emotion. It is not something you create. It is what remains when you stop creating illusions. You have carried it since the beginning of time. To live in silence is to live in truth. And truth is simple. It does not require effort, only courage. The courage to see without filters, to feel without fear, to exist without masks. That is what it means to truly read another, to read without the interference of yourself. You may wonder, if I become silent, will I lose my ability to think? No. You will think when necessary, and stop when it is not. Right now, your thinking is compulsive. It controls you. In silence, thinking becomes your servant, not your master. You use the mind like you use your hands, when needed, with precision, and then you put it down. This is freedom. The freedom of being alert but not entangled, alive but not attached, present but not possessed. Try a small experiment. Sit with someone you love. Don't speak. Don't plan what to say. Just be there, silently, fully. Look into their eyes without intention, without analysis. Let your presence meet theirs. You will be astonished. Words will become unnecessary. You will begin to feel what they feel, know what they cannot express. You will begin to read their being directly. That is the secret the mystics knew. That is what they meant by communion. It is not communication of words. It is a meeting of silences. Once you taste that, you will realize how much life you have missed chasing noise. You were always trying to understand through thinking, when understanding was waiting in stillness. You were always seeking love through effort, when love was blooming in the quiet of your being. Silence is not the end of life. It is the beginning. From it arises clarity, strength, compassion, joy. From it arises the ability to read people, not with suspicion, but with awareness, to see their pain, to see their beauty, to see their divine essence hidden beneath layers of fear. And when you see that, you can no longer live unconsciously. You start living deliberately, tenderly. Every act becomes meditation. Every word carries weight. Every silence becomes sacred. In that silence, even a stranger feels like family. Even the enemy begins to dissolve into understanding, because you see that the same consciousness that breathes in you breathes in them. And how can you harm another when you see that? Silence is the ultimate reading the universe itself. Once you are silent, you don't need to read books. Life becomes your scripture. Every leaf, every star, every tear becomes a verse in the cosmic poem. So remember, when I say you can read anyone if you learn to silence your mind, I am not offering a trick for manipulation. I am pointing you toward awakening. Reading others is only the surface. What truly matters is seeing through yourself. And once you have done that, once your mind has fallen into stillness, there will be nothing left to read, because you will have become the book and the reader and the silence between the words. If this truth resonates with you, let it echo within your own heart. Sit with it, breathe with it. Allow silence to unfold in you, not as an effort, but as a remembering. And when that silence blooms, you will walk in the world with eyes open and heart unburdened. You will see through people, through appearances, through the endless noise of the mind, and everywhere you look you will find yourself, because ultimately there is no other. There is only silence, playing different notes, pretending to be many but forever one. If this message touched something within you, let it rest there for a while. Don't rush to understand. Just feel. And when the silence begins to whisper again, listen. If this video resonated with you, share your reflection. Write what silence has shown you. Subscribe if you wish to walk deeper into this mystery, not to follow me, but to follow yourself into silence. Because only in silence can you truly see.